Well, hello everybody. How are you doing today? I really hope that you're doing fine. I tell you, I hope that you're experiencing the very best that life has to offer on today and every day thereafter. Let me start by saying thank you very much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it, as always. And I would like to welcome all of you to another episode of TJ's Topics. I tell you, we are here once again, and I tell you, it is truly a pleasure to be with you. It really is. I consider it a joy, an honor, and a privilege to be able to come into your presence on any given occasion. I tell you, it just means a lot to me just to be able to spend these few moments with you. Now, today I have a little topic that I would like to share, and it's one that definitely means something to me because it applies not only to me but to the group in which I was born. I am a member of Generation X, and for those of you out there who may be a part of our generation, then we're so excited about you. We're glad that you're a part of our generation. However, if you were born prior to the beginning of our generation, or if you were born after the end of our generation, then please know that we're not excluding you from any of this because a lot of what I'm going to cover today actually benefits a number of you out there as well. Baby boomers, as well as millennials and Gen Y, Gen Z, what have you. We're just so glad that you can be with us. And it's good that we're all here on this earth at the same time because so many people have left us, in all these generations, including Generation X. So just to be able to be here at this moment in time, it's nothing short of a blessing and a miracle. So today I would like to share this topic with you: the benefits of being a part of Generation X. That's what we're talking about. The benefits of being a part of Generation X. And being a part of that generation myself, I can tell you there are multiple benefits. I mean, because basically we were meant to serve as the bridge between the older generation, which would be the baby boomers, those who were born between 1946 and 1964, and the millennials, those who were born between 1981 and around 1994, right in there. We, as Gen Xers, are to be that bridge between those generations. And therefore, we have benefits because we have ties to not only the old school, with which we grew up with a lot of, and then the new school, which we were exposed to as well. So we're grateful for all of that. Now, what are the benefits of being a part of Generation X? Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980, often experiences significant benefits, including a strong work ethic, adaptability, and a unique position as a bridge between generations, like I just mentioned. They also value work-life balance and appreciate opportunities for career advancement and professional development. Those things and a lot more are what makes us as Gen Xers a very unique generation. But lately, I have been feeling as if our generation has sort of been forgotten. You know, it's like Generation X, we have been overlooked for quite a while. People haven't really thought much about us. As a matter of fact, anytime when I watch the news or read various articles online or in magazines and things, very little is said regarding Generation X, my generation. But you always hear about the baby boomers and you hear about the millennials and Gen Y, Gen Z, the alpha generation. And I mean, you hear about all of them. You hear about the greatest generation and all of them. But very little is said about Generation X. And I don't understand why that is. I mean, don't we matter? I mean, we've been around here long enough now to have made some kind of contribution to this world. Just think, this year in 2025, the oldest of Gen Xers is turning 60 years old. Our generation is getting on up there. The oldest ones this year are turning 60. And the youngest of our generation is turning 45. Well, I'm 45 right now, but I was born in 1979. So later on this year, I will turn 46. But since our generation ends in 1980, then those are the ones who are turning 45 this year. So we're in a very unique position. We can reach back to a lot of the old school stuff from the past, including the civil rights movement. Our generation was birthed during the civil rights movement and, during the time when there was this major uproar. You had the different wars and stuff going on, like Vietnam and all that, the feminist movement and what have you. And then we're also the generation that experienced the introduction of cable television. The introduction of BET and MTV and all that. When Michael Jackson first went solo, grew up with the Jacksons, Jackson 5 and all of them. And then they developed another group called the Jacksons. And then finally, Michael broke off on his own. We experienced all that. We've lived through, I'm talking about growing up now. We grew up during 7 presidential administrations. Lyndon B. Johnson, who took the place of John F. Kennedy after he was assassinated. The Nixon administration, Richard Nixon, and the Watergate scandal, which brought his administration to a close. Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon's vice president, who finished out Nixon's term. Jimmy Carter, who just recently passed, and I was born during his administration. Ronald Reagan, he basically ruled the 80s. He was the president during the majority of the 1980s. George H.W. Bush. And then finally, Bill Clinton, our former governor here in Arkansas, and then became the president of the United States. We grew up during all these different presidents, and we have seen so much happen along the way. I mean, a ton of things have happened, and yet we're still here. We have survived, and we're grateful for that. Strong work ethic. That's one thing that Generation X has always exemplified. We're known for our commitment to getting the job done, and we're hardworking and reliable. And that might explain the reason why I've had to find myself doing so much at work, taking up the slack that other folk left. And they call on me and I got to go and straighten their mess out. Adaptability. We have a proven ability to adapt to changing circumstances. That's something that we as Gen Xers have always had to deal with. Things changing left and right. Independent and autonomous. As Gen Xers, we prefer autonomy and we like to work independently. And that's something that I definitely enjoy myself. Working by myself, out the way of everybody, not being bothered with folk. I don't need anybody standing over my shoulder, watching me work. Just tell me what I need to do. If it's something I don't understand, I ask you and you show me how and let me go from there and leave me alone. Effective communication skills. We are adept at both written and verbal communication. That's a good quality to have as a Gen Xer or any member of any generation for that matter. But we're talking about Generation X. And of course, I just mentioned we are the bridge between the generations, the baby boomers and the millennials. And we can also help the Gen Z uh, members as well. We can help them out whenever necessary. Professional development. We're eager to learn and improve our skills whenever possible so that we may, be able to gain new opportunities and stuff and train and be able to become really good at something. That makes us happy when we're able to make a contribution to the workplace. Career advancement and meaningful work. We as Gen Xers are motivated by opportunities for career advancement. But then not only are there professional benefits of being a part of our generation, but there are personal advantages too, personal benefits of being a Gen Xer. Financial stability. Now, most of us, we've been out of high school for decades now. I mean, I've been out of high school for 27 years, almost 30 years. Graduated from college in 2002 from community college. I went back in 2009 and took a couple of courses, and then I enrolled in online courses in 2010. And so I finished it up about 3 or 4 years later. And I've since paid off all that debt. It took me a while, but I got it paid off. And so we are very committed to education as Gen Xers. That means a lot to us, and financial stability at this point in time, with us ranging from age 45 to age 60, financial stability is very important to us. Health and wellness, that's another important thing. Being the age that we all are now, ranging from age 45 to 60 years old, we have definitely got to think about our health, because at 45, that's when they recommend that we start taking colonoscopies. And at the time when you watch this, I will have already done my colonoscopy, so, that's very important. And once you reach age 45, you got to think about, all of these things. Is very important. Work-life balance. That's something that really matters a lot to us as Gen Xers. We want to prioritize and we want to keep things like that in balance. We work diligently on the job, but when we get off work, then we want to think about ourselves, our families and friends and our hobbies, things that we enjoy partaking of, whatever it is. That matters to us. Entrepreneurial mindset. We're comfortable with taking risk and pursuing new opportunities. Those things really matter to us as Gen Xers. We're self-reliant and we're problem solvers. We don't mind tackling different things. They may be challenging, but we try to get in there and we do whatever needs to be done in order to solve the problem. One more benefit of being a part of Generation X as Gen Xers, we aren't so easily offended by certain types of jokes, such as racial jokes, ethnic jokes, sexual jokes, jokes of a sexual nature, all the different innuendos and stuff. As Gen Xers, we grew up around a lot of people like our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, babysitters, neighbors and stuff who, you know, during that time, they would always tell us to tell the kids to go play in our rooms or go outside or something because they didn't want to sit around the adults hearing all types of conversations that they felt we didn't need to be hearing at such a young age. However, as Gen Xers, we always found a way to eavesdrop, whether it was from outside the window at the house, or if it was on the inside, we were like in our bedrooms or down the hall or some kind of way. We would always find a way to eavesdrop on their conversation so we could find out exactly what it was they were talking about. And that's how we learned a lot, by listening, because they taught us that on Sesame Street, And see, that's another benefit to being a part of Generation X. We experienced children's television when it was at its best. Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Reading Rainbow, 3-2-1 Contact, all of that was on point. Children's television was off the chain during our time, the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s, because those of us who are the younger members of Generation X, we grew up during the 1980s and 90s. So therefore, we are more in tune with a lot of modern stuff, that was as time progressed. So therefore, we know about all that. But and I'm just grateful. I really am. All the sarcasm that we heard, people making all kinds of rude jokes and stuff, the N word, and everybody was a N word or a hunky peckerwood. All that stuff. We grew up with that. Those words were broadcast on television, on the radio, and especially in the household, because we were exposed to all that at an early age. We grew up watching hours and hours of network television, NBC, ABC, CBS. I mean, so therefore we knew all that. We shows like All in the Family, Sanford and Son, Good Times, The Jeffersons, The Cosby Show. And I'm a Cosby kid because, if you're a child who grew up like I said, in Generation X, but particularly if you were born and raised in the 1970s and 80s, then you can consider yourself a Cosby kid, because Bill Cosby was all over our television screens in the 70s and 80s and early 90s. He was all over TV. I mean, so we're Cosby kids. The Golden Girls, The Facts of Life, Three's Company, Different Strokes, 227, you name it. I mean, and look, we are the generation that was introduced to CDs, compact disc. And then we saw the introduction of Blockbuster Video. There were other video stores around at the time, but Blockbuster was a new phenomenon that came along during the era in which we as Gen Xers grew up. And we enjoyed going to Blockbuster. Had a good time getting tapes and stuff to watch, putting them in VCRs. Didn't have DVD players. We had VCRs. And then finally, for those of us who were old enough to sit up late at night, we may have gotten a chance to watch the Tonight Show on NBC. Well, as a Gen Xer, we were fortunate enough to see the Tonight Show hosted by two different guys, First by Johnny Carson, then by Jay Leno. I'm telling you, we had a good time. Yes, we did. And all the wars, Vietnam and the Gulf War and all that. Generation X has lived through a lot. We've experienced a lot. And we're still standing. And we do have a lot to be grateful for. Some of our generation has passed on, and our hearts go out to them and their families. But for those of us who are still here, we have a lot to be grateful for. And we're still pressing on. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in today. And like I said, those are some of the benefits of being a part of Generation X. And whatever generation you're a part of, whether it's before Gen X or after, please know that you have something to be grateful for too, because you too have experienced a lot. And just be thankful that you're still here. So I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of TJ's Topics. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next go round, okay? As we move further along into this summer. I tell you, this year is getting on away from us. And we hope to be here to see it too. This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding all of you that every round goes higher and higher. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.